Hello again, and welcome to the fourth video tutorial for Gearify Screensaver. In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about scripts. This tutorial is intended only for people who have some background in mathematics or programming. If you have no familiarity with either, you should probably stick with generating gears from images and from the default gear generation script, which is included with Gearify Screensaver. Okay, so let's begin. So I'm going to bring up a simple text editor. I'm going to use Notepad. And as usual, get rid of that. Okay. All right, there, we can see both at once now. So I have a simple blank text document, and I'm going to start with a single line, r equals 3 plus sine of 3t. So the ultimate goal of the script is to specify a radius function. The radius function is denoted by r, and you give it some function of t. I'm going to save this file, put it in my documents, call it tutorial script. Okay, now in my Screensaver settings menu, on the script tab here, I'm going to click Browse, go to Tutorial Script. Now I'm going to click Test, and we see our little radius function appeared right here. And if I click Next Sample, I can see the next radius that is generated by the script. And we see we have the function that we just specified being graphed in polar coordinates. T is evaluated from 0 to 2 pi. It's generally a good idea to use sines and cosines for this so that you get a nice periodic closed curve. Okay. This is pretty cool, but still not too interesting because every time I click next, I'm getting the exact same gear. So how can we make this more interesting? Well, what I'm going to do is put some hashtags here, and I'm going to add random int to 5. And as you might guess, randint to 5 is going to generate a random integer between 2 and 5 inclusively. So I'm going to save that, click test again, and click next. There we go. So now I'm getting some randomization. And you can see the resulting expression being shown up here. So that's pretty cool. What else can we do? Well, it can be annoying to have to type everything all in one line. So let's start declaring some variables. Let's call the first value here a. Int a equals 3. And now I'm going to reference the variable by enclosing it in $signs. Whenever you create a variable, you have to give it a type, which is going to be either int or real, and you give it a value. Then when you reference it, you have to enclose it in $signs. So I'm going to make this 2 instead so we can see the change. Now I click test. There we go. It's working fine. Alright, so that's also pretty cool. Let's make that random value inside a variable as well. I'm going to say int w equals, make it that value. Alright. And I'll substitute w in here. Save, test, same thing. Alright, so that looks a little better, a little easier to read. So what else can we do? Alright, suppose instead of having a sine every time, we wanted to have, say, a cosine some of the time. To make things more interesting, let's say that we want the cosine to be 3 times more likely than the sine. Here's how we can achieve this. So we saw variables before, which are integers or reals. Then make this a real so you can see it. But now I'm going to add an expression. Expressions are different than variables in 2 ways. Expressions are generally functions or any line of text, and they are not evaluated after you give them a value. For instance, if I say w equals random int between 2 and 5 over 2, the screensaver or the script reader will actually try to evaluate that to a number because it is a variable. An expression is not evaluated. It just takes whatever you give it. So I could call this sine, for example. Can't call it a because we already have that. I'm going to call that trig. And I will substitute that expression here. When you get the value of an expression, use the at symbols and close it with an at. It should produce the exact same thing. Yep. Or I could make it a cosine. Yep. Just what we want. But we wanted to make it random. So here's how we can achieve this. Here is another special function called random expression. And what we do with this, I'm going to bring this over a little bit, is first we give it an expression, followed by the odds of that expression occurring, 3. Then another expression, and the odds of that occurring, 1. Close the hashtag. So what this means is that the cosine will be selected 3 times more often than the sine. So I will save this. Test. And I have an error. I'm glad this happened. Error at line 7, unrecognized function random expression. Now, that's right. I believe I called it rand exp, not random expression. Let's try that. There we go. So when you make a mistake, that little line of text there will remind you, or will give you some pointers for what went wrong. So to correct myself there, the function is called rand expression, just like rand int. It's shorthand. So yeah, so we have most of the time a cosine, less frequently a sine. Let's see if that happens. Cosine, 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 sine, cosine, 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 sine. Pretty convincing, right? So it's getting the cosine much more frequently. Okay. So that's also pretty cool. But what else can we do? I'm going to introduce you to the notion of a product. A product is basically a looping sequence where you can string together individual factors that are all multiplied together. I'm going to create a, let's see, I'll keep it simple. I'll erase what we have. I will create a new product. So first I'll create an expression, product result. Let's call it product, it's easier. Equals begin product. 3. Means we're going to have a product with 3 factors. The product must always end with end product. The result of your product is stored in R. Now, outside of a product, R refers to the resulting radius. But inside of a product, R refers to the individual term for this product. So, for example, I can say R equals, I don't know, 3 plus sine of random int between 2 and 5 times t. And we must take that result now, so the result is assigned to the expression product. We'll take that result and assign it to the radius. Again, product is a expression, so we have to reference it using the @ symbols. Alright, so save that test. I have another error. Opening hashtag was not matched with a closing hashtag. Where did I do that? I did it right here. Thank you for catching that. Okay, so I will test it again. Alright, and now you see 3 plus sine 3t times 3 plus sine 2t plus 3 times sine 5t. So it's randomly generating each of these, taking the result and stringing them together. Pretty cool, huh? Another useful thing is that you can replace product with sum. So we have begin product, we could do begin sum, and they'll be all added up together instead of multiplied. Okay, another useful feature is that you can actually make use of a counter variable when you're inside of a product or a sum. And that variable is called I. You don't have to declare it, you just reference it. So here I'm going to, so I replaced it with I, I'm going to say test. And you can see the first one is 0, the next one is 1, the next one is 2. So it starts from 0 and it starts ticking up. So that's another way that you can, another variable that you can utilize to make more interesting scripts. Now we can also make the product have varying length. So I could say int n equals random int between 2 and 5. And I will use n as the number of terms here. Okay, save test. And now you can't see very well, but oh, look at this. Yeah, see, we're getting a varying number of terms in our product. Not too much variability because we don't have much randomness here, but still pretty interesting. Okay, so this all looks pretty good. The only problem that we have mainly is that we only have one script. And the question is, what if we wanted to have multiple scripts inside a single file? We don't have to keep track of a million different files. Well, what you can do is you can say, you can create chance blocks. Chance blocks look as follows. You start with begin chance, you give a value, which gives the likelihood of this script being used, and then you end with end chance. And if you want, you can indent, so you can zoom it off a little better. Now I'll create a second chance block. Oops. And this one I'll make a nice little spiral shaped gear. R equals 3 plus T. Alright. And I'll make the first one just so we can see what we're doing. I will make the first one a circle. So the first one will be a circle and the second one will be a spiral. Alright, I've saved this. Tested it. Next, spiral, circle, spiral, circle. Now down here, what you have is the block selection parameter. When it's random, the values you use as your chances determine the likelihood of them being selected. So if this one is, the circle is 3, for example, test, next, You see the circle is selected much more frequently. However, if we go to in sequence, the first block will be used 3 times, and the next block will be used once. So this means repeat it 3 times, repeat it once. If this was a 2, then we would have 2 circles followed by 2 spirals, and then the process would repeat. And that's most of what you need to know for scripting, really. There are more detailed instructions in the user manual. A final note that I will make is that you have access to all these other variables as well. You can specify, I'm just going to use one chance block so we can see it. You can specify the number of teeth in your script using numTeeth. I'll assign it to be 8. Test. There, now we have 8 teeth. I can set the tooth shape. I made it square now. I can set whether I want it to be internal. I can set whether I want it to be orbit display mode. And you won't see any effect on the actual gear shape, but when I click next, see now orbit is set to true and internal is set to true. And also I can set my rotation ratio using ratio equals whatever I want, say 3. And yep, we see our rotation ratio is 3. Notice that whenever I modify the script, I clicked test. That makes sure that the script is free of errors and points me where the errors are, if there are any. And then I click next sample to start actually viewing gears inside of the script. So there you go. That's basically all there is to scripting. Again, you can see the user manual for more detailed instructions. And that's it. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the screensaver, and feel free to contact me if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions. Again, my website is www.gearifyscreensaver.com, and I look forward to hearing your comments and feedback. Thank you.